Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to our weekly Bofuri discussion video. And today we're here to talk all about episode 9, but before we get into the video proper, I do, as always, have to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter. At Family of BTS, at Sirius9752, at Dragon Kid TV, at Matt87Eagle, at Bubbalubber, at DX Anna, at Janeme, at PH3909, at Osiris99, and at David.9011. Thank you all so much for sharing last week's video over on Twitter, everybody, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Bofuri video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Okay, so this week's episode of Bofuri. Now, I've probably said this about every single episode of the show, but I'm gonna repeat it here because it's just how I felt after I left. There is no show that is as fun as Bofuri, like at least this season. Like this show is so abundantly charming and fun every episode. It never manages to leave me in a bad mood. Even if there's episodes like last week, right? Last week, I wasn't like a huge fan of last week's episode, but I still had fun. Like it was still fun and charming as it's ever been. And that is the biggest compliment I can give this show, is it is so charming and so fun. It will win you over. Even if you're not like a big VR MMO fan, like if you're not a fan of this subgenre that is kind of emerging, if you're not a fan of it, I get it, but this show will still charm you. This show will still win you over. And this week, there are two things that I really want to talk about. I want to talk about the Guild Wars finally beginning, aka the Guild competition, and of course, we gotta talk about that Sally shine! That shine for our best girl, Sally. In fact, let's go ahead and start with that. I was gonna start with the Guild competition, but I'd rather start with the Sally stuff because honestly, Sally, I think, has the potential to be MVP, you know what I mean? Like, we already know that our girl Maple's got this on lockdown. Like, we already know she is the tank. And I will say, their base is almost, like, unfair, you know what I mean? Like, I was just like, okay, you set Maple's team inside of a cave with a single entrance like this is 300 or something. You didn't feel like that was vaguely unfair and kind of leaning into Maple's skills? Whatever. We know Maple's got this on lockdown. I'm not even worried about it. However, MVP, excluding Maple, MVP is going to be Sally. I can just tell, you know what I mean? Like, especially in the way that they showed off Sally's skills in this week's episode. Man, Sally shined the brightest in this episode. And you guys know, Sally's my girl. She's my favorite in the show. But I do think that this episode is sort of harkens back to episodes like 2 and 3 where Sally like really was like the focus for a little bit. It was still Maple's story, but Maple's story? It was still Maple's story, but Sally took kind of center stage for those 2 episodes. And here, that's kind of the same thing that happens. Sally basically takes point during the early parts of the guild competition. Before the guild competition even starts, in fact, because we have Sally versus Frederica. And this fight was both like a physical showdown as well as a mental one, because basically what Sally immediately figures out that Frederica is there to scout them, to see like how they operate, their abilities, how clever they are, blah blah blah. And so Sally's like, tell you what, how about we have a duel since I caught you, and whoever wins gets the loser to tell them as much as they can about the other guild. Frederica says, nah. Frederica says, tell you what, if you beat me, I'll tell you about the Flame Emperors, and that's it. And Sally's like, deal. And so they have a showdown, and the clever thing here is that neither really wants to show their whole hand. You know, like neither wants to show all the cards that they're playing with because they're going into a guild competition. If they go all out here, then the both guilds will know how that specific player operates and all of their abilities. So they were hiding certain abilities. Sally does manage to get Frederica to show her like one of her big like multi-barrier attacks, which, by the way, Frederica's no joke. Like, just straight up, like she's also like a total badass. And Frederica thinks she walks away the victor, and I think like it was mostly kind of even split, because Frederica's basically like, okay, so I got her to show me a bunch of her skills, and I only had to tell them about the Flame Emperor, and if all works out, I'll just get those two guilds to destroy each other, and then Holy Sword stands up victorious. And like that's Frederica's, what Frederica walks away with. Sally walks away with, okay, I tricked her into thinking I had these skills that I don't actually have, and I learned about the Flame Emperors, so that's pretty good. So like both, you see what I mean? Like they were both playing multiple games on multiple levels. Everybody else is playing checkers, these two are playing chess. We later on see Frederica versus Dread as well, another member of Holy Sword, and holy crap, Holy Sword is really tough. Dread in particular is a perfect match for Sally. Like these two are like made to fight each other basically. Sally and Dread are both these, like especially in the way that Sally is portrayed during the guild competition. Sally's like cloaked in the same way that Dread is. They're both sort of like assassin-ish characters. Like they're really like sneaky, hiding, like kind of like, and with the super speed as well. The super speed that these two have, in fact, one of them having God speed, which again is going to be really funny in a second, reminded me of the Flash. Now, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Flash as like a character, whether that's through the comics or the TV show. I prefer the comics, but I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with that. But if you've ever seen a speedster fight, that is what this reminded me of 100%. This was a Flash fight, but with daggers, and it was a lot sharper than normal. Like the fact that they even say Godspeed, if you don't know, Godspeed is like a villainous speedster. So I was like, that's kind of funny. Definitely not on purpose. Like I just feel like that's just the two character builds that we're dealing with, and so just it kind of reminded me of that. I don't think it was like a direct like, look at this reference. It was just like kind of a happy coincidence. And happy coincidence or not, this fight was friggin' dope. It was so damn cool. Especially since we know that Dread has already sort of scoped these, like, he already kind of had a gauge of where Sally was in terms of skill, and he was still impressed that she had grown since he last saw her, but he still ends up, like, he is so fast, Sally had to stop and just, like, do, like, the deep breaths to try to figure out where he was. And she does block his attack when he's using Godspeed, so she was able to like kind of like scope him out. But he, to me, in that fight, even though he ran away, I feel like Dread could have probably taken Sally out if he felt like it. Now, I'm sure I'm wrong, but that's just the vibe that I got. Holy Sword to me, like I said, is just really badass, and I think, and I mean, light novel fans, you know not to spoil. You guys have been so good about not spoiling, so don't tell me. But if I were a betting man, I would put my money on Holy Sword. Speaking of the other guilds though, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Sally absolutely wrecking shop, single-handedly by the way, taking down the sort of lesser like extras, quote unquote. And by the way, those are characters that we saw in previous events, so kudos to the show for not just throwing a bunch of randos at us, actually using some of the past characters that we've seen, like using those character designs for more than just one event. Very cool. I was happy to see like the one douchey character from like event 1 show up again. I thought that was really funny. And yeah, Sally and Mapletree just wiped the floor with most of these guys. And as I said, like Sally basically just runs through causing havoc and chaos amongst the other like lesser guilds, and bumps into, of all people, me. Not me as in the guy talking, but me as in the character. I'm just gonna call her Flame Empress for the remainder of this video. She bumps into the Flame Empress, and a chase ensues, and Flame Empress just manages to not quite catch her, like just misses her by a little bit. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, bursts and breaks down and becomes this like nervous, shy character, which like, whoa, I didn't see that coming at all. Yeah, when she's just like, I'll get you next time, I'm sick of being the leader, I hate this. I was like, yo, okay, first of all, relatable. Second of all, whoa, I didn't see that coming at all. So Flame Empress, like, I knew like Flame Empress had like something up, but like, cause we've seen her like sort of frown when nobody's looking. And I thought that was her basically lamenting that she just wanted to like fight strong people, that she didn't want to lead because she, like, not so much that she didn't want to lead, but she just wanted like a strong fight, and she felt like she wasn't getting that. That's what I thought. Apparently not. Like, I don't know what's going on with the Flame Empress. I don't know what's going on with me, but she is an interesting character. So I got my eye on Flame Empress. I was pleasantly surprised by that. Again, Bofuri just surprising me, keeping all these characters fun and these specific like fights and instances really entertaining and really just engaging. And that's not just the Flame Emperors, although I do like them. I like even the one character who's like the trapper character, Marcus, I believe his name is. That was like, I like his sort of like, oh man, like all I'm doing is setting traps. Like I should be out there, blah blah blah. And the other character is like basically the Sword Maiden from Goblin Slayer. But like I said, it's not just the Flame Emperors we get in this episode. It's also Holy Sword themselves, and yeah, they are badass. Like, we already saw how badass Dread was. Drag gets to be a total unbelievable champion. Like, this dude has an entire guild charging them. And, like, we've seen Maple take out an entire group of people, right? So, like, we know that Maple is capable of doing that because her skills are insanely stacked into Vitality, right? So we know that Maple can handle herself. But to see Drag, like, straight up just, like, use his axe as though he were Thor, like just bringing down the thunder and like just wiping the floor with an entire group of people, 2 hits. Holy crap. Drag was impressive. Like, Drag was impressive. Frederica we've also seen before. We know she's badass. I can't remember the main dude's name from Holy Sword. I do not recall. Dang it. I feel bad. But he continues to be mysterious. I'm curious why he is always facing away from the camera. That's interesting. I noticed that this episode. I'm like, have we ever seen his face? I don't recall seeing his face. I feel like he's always looking away from us, which is interesting. I'm curious what he'll look like up close. But yeah, the Holy Sword Guild is also pretty badass. The guild competition in general is really fun as well. It to me felt sort of like a mix of like Capture the Flag and King of the Hill. So I think that's genuinely, if I were playing like an MMO and I had like my guild and this was the event, I would be genuinely excited to play like this specific event. It seems really fun. I'm really intrigued to see where this is going. I feel like this is going to take up the rest of the season, and I'm totally okay with that. I feel like this is the perfect way to wrap up season 1, and I'm really stoked. Like, this was insanely entertaining. With that said, everybody, I'm going to wrap up my thoughts here. I will happily give this week's episode a solid Earl Grey. It is the step above your average tea. Now, Bofuri's been great. Bofuri has been nothing but fun. But this was that step above, you know what I mean? Like, this was that good cup of tea. That's what this was. And that's it for today's video, everybody. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then be sure to go ahead and hit that like button and leave a comment down below, because it all pleases the almighty YouTube algorithm, which helps me out a ton. So if you choose to do so, kudos to you. And if you'd like to go that one step further to help the channel out, then go ahead and check out some of the mugs listed just under this video from our Teespring store. That is super appreciated. Or if you want to help out the channel more regularly, of course, you can check out our Patreon, like these lovely people that you see before you. And speaking of our patrons, I would like to give a big shout out to those of you in the Earl Grey tier. Zevi, Andrew, Branson, Calvin, Crowbar of Irony, Daniel, Digger the Fox, Dominic, Emily, Ionos, Urza, Ginkotaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria, Marshall B, Mater, Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Steven, Sakochi, Tristan, and Veridin. Thanks so much to all of you in the Earl Grey tier, as well as those of you in the Orange Pico tier. And if you too would like to join our T-Squadron, then be sure to check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord for as little as $1 a month. Once again, I want to thank you all so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys have a great day, and until next time, you stay classy, AniTube, and wash your dang hands.